Hello friends and welcome back. My name is Kallie Branciforte and today we are going to be talking about groceries. Particularly, we're going to be talking about why the heck groceries are always so expensive. Whenever I share anything budgeting related, one of the biggest questions that I always get is about grocery budgets. People want to know how much their grocery budget should be and how they can reduce their monthly spending on groceries. It's just that one line item that we all pretty much have every week, and I think we all worry about overspending in. Now, the first thing that I'm going to say is I don't think there's some hard and fast rule on how much your groceries should be. This is mostly due to a handful of things that can impact it, like how many adults and how many kids are in your family, special dietary needs, how many meals do you eat at home every week, and so on. And another huge factor that I feel like no one ever seems to talk about is where you live. One, you might not have access to some of the cheaper chains like Walmart and Aldi, so you can't take advantage of these cheaper alternatives. And two, literally the state that you live in can drastically impact the cost of your groceries. For example, I live in Connecticut and it is by most lists considered one of the top 5 most expensive states for groceries, which means I'll never be able to compete with a grocery budget of someone, say in Oklahoma, which typically is listed as one of the least expensive states for groceries. So my point here is I don't have a golden rule on how much you're spending on groceries. Setting that budget is something you need to do based on your personal life. You need to sit down, look at your monthly expenses, your revenue coming in every single month, where that money is going, and then set a realistic amount for each month. And if you need help with budgeting, I will link my budgeting blog post down below. Now, all that being said, no matter what your budget is, there are some ways that I can help you reduce that grocery bill every single month. So we're going to look at some of the reasons your grocery bill might be higher than you want it to be and talk about ways that we can lower it. Let's do this. Alright, the first reason that your grocery bill is too high is because you are not shopping with a plan. Hands down, the biggest money suck at the grocery store is going into the store without any plan. You're always going to spend more, and worst yet, you're likely going to end up with food that you don't end up eating, which is the worst because it basically, you might as well just light your money on fire and save the wasted food. Just kidding. So the key to avoiding this, obviously, is to plan your meals ahead of time. So this way you have very specific lists that you're shopping with when you go into the grocery store. Now, if you're not currently doing any meal planning, don't worry, I have an entire meal planning video that I will link down below that walks you through my entire process of how I meal plan, how it saves me money, how I create my specific list, and how I stick to that list, basically to save a bunch of money using meal planning. All right, the second reason that your grocery bill is too high is disorganization. This means that your pantry, your kitchen, your freezer, isn't well organized. Having your food disorganized means one, you can't see what you do and don't have in stock, meaning you may end up overbuying things that you don't need, or go to make a meal and realize that you're missing a key ingredient that you really need for that meal. Two, it also means it's easier to miss items that you do have in stock and then they go bad before you can use them because you're pushing older groceries to the back. Again, you might as well just light the money on fire. Is this like clip giving anyone else anxiety? Because I'm actually having anxiety filming it. I'm like, I ain't gonna play like that. Here are a few of my tips for tackling disorganization in your kitchen. One, always do a quick organization session every time you bring home new groceries. I know this sounds really overwhelming in theory, but if you actually just do it every time you get groceries, you realize that things will stay pretty well decently organized, and it won't take more than a few minutes each time. Either do this before you go shopping or do it just as you're bringing your new groceries in. Just make it part of your routine and it'll become a habit. Two, consider keeping an inventory in writing, particularly for the most neglected spots like our deep freezer and our pantry. Personally, I used to be so bad about keeping track of what was in my freezer. Things would always go bad before I had a chance to use them, and it was such a waste of money and food. So what I do now is I keep a list of what freezer meals I have and I store it on the side of my fridge. I have this plastic pocket that I got from the Dollar Tree. I just use a whiteboard marker and I keep it updated. You can do the same thing with your pantry if that helps as well. And I actually have a free meal planning printable that I will link down below that you can download because it comes with a pantry inventory that you can use. So I'll put a link to that in the description box down below. But basically the idea is to keep a good inventory of what you have so you know what you have in stock. All right guys, the third reason that your bill is too high is you're not strict about eating what you buy. I'm sorry to be the one to break it to you. I feel like it's one of those things that we secretly know, but sometimes somebody just needs to say it to us. A weekly meal plan and a grocery list is only good and successful if you actually stick to it. So this means that, if Thursday night rolls around and you say, I don't really want this that we have on our meal plan, let's just go get pizza instead, then you end up with ingredients to an entire meal in your refrigerator not being used. Even if you say you're gonna make that meal later, lots of times you don't end up making that meal later. So be strict. We write down exactly what days we're eating exactly which meals, and then we stick to it. So let me tell you some of my tips for making sure that you're gonna stick to the plans that you make. These are the tips that we use for sticking to our meal planning in our house. Number one, give yourself some easy meals every single week. Don't get too lofty and plan big things for every single night. Have some easy meals in every week's plan so that if you're faced with a night where you don't have it in you, you can default to one of these easier meals. Two, write down exact days you're having exact meals. We write it out on our kitchen calendar, and that way everyone knows what meals are which days, and it makes it much less likely that you're going to skip over something. Three, always remember you can change it for next week. If Thursday comes around and you're both like, oh my God, we don't want Thai chicken, we want to go get pizza, then say, okay, listen, we're gonna suck it up this one Thursday night. We're not gonna put Thai chicken on the menu again for a little while because we obviously don't want it. And then maybe even take that time to pick something you'd really rather have and pencil it in for next week to look forward to. All right, guys, the fourth reason that your bill is too high is that you're shopping at the wrong stores. Sometimes we are a slave to what's close and convenient, so this isn't a tip that all of us can take advantage all of the time, but I will tell you that if you shop around just a little bit, you can save quite a bit of money on groceries. Personally, my grocery store is next to a Walmart, and when I have the time, I actually will go into Walmart first and stock up on certain things that I just know I can get there cheaper than at my grocery store. I don't have a super Walmart, so I can't take full advantage of the grocery section, but there's still some staples that I can save quite a bit of money on. This can often save me as much as $25 to $50 or more on a single grocery trip. So if possible, consider hitting up a more affordable grocery option like a Walmart or an Aldi, even if it's only once a month, and then add it to your grocery rotation to stock up on some of the things that are always marked up at the grocery store. Like I said, even if you can't do it every single time you go grocery shopping, even if it's once a month or every other month, it's still going to save you money. All right, guys, we are moving on to the fifth tip. And the fifth tip is the one that I like to call the one-time meals. A big hole in our grocery bills can be buying things for specific recipes and then not using up all of that ingredient. This is why tip number one on this list is so important, which is planning. When you're planning your meals, I want you to consider what I call ingredient sharing. This means if you're trying a meal that calls for a cup of buttermilk, then you want to think about what else you can cook that week that will also use buttermilk. If you need to buy fresh parsley, there's a good chance you're not going to use the entire bunch. So what else can you eat or cook that's going to use up parsley? Just be mindful when you're planning meals of what ingredients you'll need to make them and making sure you're planning other meals around those ingredients. That way you're essentially using up everything that you bought and you're not wasting any food, which means you're not wasting any money. We are on to reason number 6, and that is that you're not shopping your own pantry. If you don't start grocery shopping by looking at what you already have in your pantry, you're missing out on saving some money. Always start your list by looking what you already have in your pantry and or freezer and or fridge. Look at what you have in there, what needs to be used up. By simply shopping what you already have, you're saving yourself from having to buy more than you need. You're making sure that you use up things before they expire, and you're saving yourself from overbuying too much of something if you already had it. All right, guys, we are on to reason number 7, which I feel like lucky number 7, right? Anybody else's lucky number 7? Anyways, the 7th and final reason your bill may be too high is you're not taking advantage of generic brands. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that all name brands are bad. Personally, I have certain things that I always buy name brand because I truly have found them to be better over time. But it is very easy to fall into the habit of always going name brand, even for things where it really doesn't matter. There's some reasons we tend to do this. Our mind will quickly look at something and say, well, it's name brand and it's only 50 cents more, so it must be better. Or we'll just recognize the name brand because we've seen it advertised so many times and our brain instinctually trusts it more because we've seen it. But the truth is, very often name brands and generic brands are essentially the same thing. Again, I'm not saying always, but very often. There was a recent consumer report study that actually found that in a blind taste test, almost all of the generic brands tasted just as good as the name brand, and the quality was also very comparable. So considering that name brands are typically marked up on average 15 to 30%, with sometimes it being as much as 100% or more, you're definitely going to make a dent in your grocery bill by just opting for generic. So as you shop, try to get in the habit of just defaulting to generic brands instead of defaulting to name brand. All right, my friends, that does it for my 7 big reasons why your grocery bill might be so high and how to fix it. Let me know in the comments down below if you were guilty of any of these. I honestly have been guilty of every single one of these at some point in my life, and I have found that by adopting these, it saves me money. And whenever I fall into the bad habit of doing one of them again, I start to spend a little bit more, and it's time for me to reevaluate. I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that these tips help you make even a small dent in your grocery bill every single month. Like I said, I'm going to link some additional budgeting stuff down below, as well as my budgeting blog post and some other budgeting videos that may help you as well if you're looking to just overall save some money every single month.